Well, won't get those 6 hours of our lives back. Today is Monday, June 28th, and this is Headers and Footers, the UEFA Euro 2020 show from the Toronto Star. I'm your host, Brendan Dunlop. What a day. I mean, a tournament doesn't really start until the knockout stage, and what a way for it to begin. This tournament has been incredible. And Sunday was amazing, seeing Portugal go up against Belgium, and then Monday delivered one of the best match days at a major tournament ever. With two more superpowers in action at Euro 2020 on Monday, except unlike Sunday, they weren't playing each other. We got extra time in both, and both were must-watch TV. I mean, when substitute Mario Palasic scored in the 92nd minute for Croatia to take Spain to extra time, tied at 3-3, that was the first knockout game at the Euros with a 3-3 scoreline ever at the European Championships. And then it happened again 3 hours later. Christian Jack tweeted that the last 3-3 game in a major tournament was the 1982 World Cup semifinal between France and West Germany. Both France and Spain were pushed to the limit by opposition that they were expected to just run over. Obviously, Croatia and Switzerland didn't subscribe to that narrative. Sunday, the reigning European champions were ousted, and Monday, the World Cup champions were bounced in unthinkable fashion. I mean, you would have won a lot of money if you'd bet that both France and Portugal would be eliminated in the round of 16. France have been eliminated in their last 3 games in which they played extra time at the Euros and at the World Cup. Shows how important it is for them to win a game in regulation. And it looked like they were up 3-1. I mean, I'll get into it with Laura Armstrong in more detail, but still unbelievable to see France finally play their game just enough to make you think they were going to run away with it and then be tested and pushed and lose on penalties in the fashion in which they did. There's nothing like tournament soccer. And there's nothing like bulging the old onion bag for Spain. They've made a real habit of scoring 5, haven't they? Putting 5 past Croatia in Copenhagen was far more impressive than putting 5 past Slovakia. Spain are the first team to score 5 goals in consecutive Euro or World Cup games since Brazil at the 1958 World Cup. And to have done it with 5 different players on the score sheet, also a first of the Euros, and also very impressive. Spain-Croatia was the second highest scoring match ever at the Euros. France v. Yugoslavia in the 1960 semifinals ended 5-4 with 9 goals. Now, when Spain went up 3-1, it looked over. But full credit to Croatia. They never quit. And even though they ran out of gas in extra time, yes, and they were gifted the first goal by Unai Simon's lack of concentration. I mean, Croatia can be very proud of how they played at Euro 2020. So many doubts about an aging squad. They can be proud of that performance. So can Alvaro Morata. And he took so much of the blame for Spain's struggles. So really a bit of justice to score the match winner in extra time. That was his 5th goal at the European Championships overall. And that draws him level with Fernando Torres as joint top scorer in Spain history at the European Championships. Now, I'm sure Unai Simon thought that he would be the most talked about player after Monday. Poor Kylian Mbappe. He's going to feel cursed if he ever has to play in Bucharest again. Took 14 shots against Switzerland, including the penalty, and failed to score a single goal. Kylian Mbappe. I mean, it's his last shot that he won't be able to get out of his mind for a long time. You know, when I was looking at my guest schedule and I asked Laura Armstrong from the Toronto Star to come on Headers and Footers again, I looked at this schedule and thought, it's a bit of a tough one for Laura. No real standout games. Well, I was totally wrong on Monday. It delivered maybe the most entertaining day of tournament football ever.
Ever in my lifetime. I mean, I completely agree with you. I was like, oh, Brendan, this day, there's nothing to this day. And then they were bangers. I'm still buzzing. I feel like I just played 180 minutes plus 2 extra times plus penalties. I'm that sweaty. That's what's happening right now. It's too much. It was incredible. It was an amazing day.
To peel the curtain back, we are recording this just moments after France lost to Switzerland in a penalty shootout. So if you ever wondered what it's like for a sports journalist as they prepare a script throughout a game and it seems as though it's going one way and then they have to change the entire story, that's exactly what you're getting right now. So thank you for taking a few minutes out of your story prep. We'll read your your story in the Toronto Star tomorrow. But let's talk about this unbelievable game, because to see it go to penalties was a shocker. To see Switzerland perfect through the penalty shootout, to see Kylian Mbappe step up as the fifth shooter. And Craig Forrest had texted me just before they went to the shootout, said, I don't think Mbappe should shoot. Didn't look right. Looked as though he had a strain on his last chance. Phenomenal ball from Paul Pogba and a great chance for France to win it in extra time. Kylian Mbappe scores that 9 out of 10 times, but he just didn't seem right. Didn't hit it right. Hit the side netting. It goes to penalties. It goes to Mbappe being the last guy, and Mbappe is the one stopped by Jan Sommer. Jan Sommer, who actually left his Swiss teammates for 2 days at this tournament to witness the birth of his child. Now we're witnessing Switzerland in a quarterfinal, having knocked out the world champions.
Let's just go back to that Mbappe chance for a second and talk about Olivier Giroud standing in the middle of the box being like, why didn't you pass to me? No one's passing to you, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You weren't going to score that either. Mbappe, you're right, would have scored that 9 times out of 10. It's interesting. Like, I mean, you're talking about a 22-year-old kid, and we forget that he's a 22-year-old kid. And I don't disagree with Craig. I sort of thought to myself, when's Mbappe coming up? And what is he going to do here? And I sort of had it in my brain, like, this is going to be a penalty shootout that comes down to Mbappe. And I don't know if he's going to be able to make it. And it's not just because of that little whatever niggle or strain he might have picked up on that last play. I just don't think that he's really looked like himself this entire tournament. And I think that, was really Karim Benzema's team this tournament. And I think that that's fantastic. I think he's the kind of veteran player that France brought in intentionally because they needed a guy to support somebody like Mbappe, who, was coming in with expectations bigger than anybody, I think, in this tournament, any other player in this tournament for, what he was going to be able to do. And really, like, he had moments, absolutely. He's a brilliant player, but did he have moments that were game-changing moments? Barely. So, when he came and he had that opportunity that was so clear-cut for it to be a game-changing moment, I just kind of felt like it wasn't going to go. And it was not a good penalty. Like, it really wasn't a great penalty. He can do better than that. He's going to be kicking himself right now. But I mean, you're going to see years of brilliance from this kid. We just didn't see it tonight. And that's really unfortunate for him.
Moments of the true Mbappe at this tournament, really only moments of the true France, it seemed like, until the 57th minute when Ricardo Rodriguez had his penalty saved. You mentioned Karim Benzema carrying this team. The game really turned around when he became the penalty whisperer and told Hugo Lloris how to stop that penalty. Then he scores two over the course of 2 minutes. And I thought Karim Benzema was going to be the story. Paul Pogba with the insurance marker from well out. I mean, I had tweeted Manchester United fans must hate watching Paul Pogba play for France because he seems to be brilliant more often than not, whereas he shows that in glimpses for Manchester United, but not consistently. For France, he was great. And at 3-1, I thought there wasn't a chance. And they said it in the commentary, which is the commentator's curse. Like, well, no chance, certainly not bringing this one back. It would take a miracle to get it to 3-3. Not only did the Swiss do that, and with some very brilliant substitutions, I really thought coaching wise, they got things better. The Swiss out-coached Didier Deschamps. And then to win it in penalties, I really am still speechless about it.
It's just like, yeah, I feel like you and I are just word vomiting our emotions and our thoughts right now, which is, I mean, I have so many thoughts going through my head when we're talking about that. Karim Benzema stepping up, like actually paying attention, not going the sorry Portugal way, and he's like Lloris actually listening to Benzema potentially and helping him save. And then I think our colleague Joe Callahan said, like, he got the hat trick because he saved that penalty and then scored 2. So you're thinking, okay, they're solid. Then Paul Pogba goes and celebrates like he's just won the World Cup somehow. Like that celebration was prolonged and it was elaborate. There were different versions of it. And you're thinking to yourself, and in that moment, you're really thinking, okay, France, this is the team that we've been waiting for. And, it entirely fell apart. And you're looking at Didier Deschamps in the last 15 minutes and he's sitting with his hands clasped, like class leaning back in his seat, or he's pacing, or he's talking to his assistants. And you're kind of thinking, this guy doesn't know what to do here. Like, he doesn't have a plan. And the Swiss had a plan, and they executed that plan from the beginning. I mean, you know that France hasn't been at their best in this tournament. They certainly haven't shown their highest gear, and Swiss took advantage of that from the beginning. And that's why this game, I think, completely collapsed, because of what the Swiss team did from the beginning until the end.
Well, Didier Deschamps, so stressed, but so well dressed. The way that the French are kitted out, their coaching staff, they give Italy a real run for their money. But yeah, it looked like he didn't have a plan when he rolled out a 3-man back line to start this game, something that attacking teams don't often do, something that France hadn't truly experimented with. And to do it in the knockout stages with Lenglet, who would have been a long shot to get into a back four. I mean, that to me didn't make any sense. Clearly, he realized that was the issue and replaced Lenglet at halftime. And I really thought in the second half, France were able to play their game. They seemed to be, in control. And we're talking about the world champions and the European champions being knocked out of this tournament at the last 16 stage.
Yeah, this has been an incredible tournament. Everything has been exciting. They're really, I think, although to be fair, I think the last time I came on here with you, I was like, this is the most boring day of Euros. And I'm pretty sure I stand by that. But almost every game that we have seen at this tournament has been competitive, has been teams going for it. It's very rare that we haven't seen teams going for it. And the fact that everybody's showing up to play means that these upsets are going to happen. I even think the Netherlands getting kicked out yesterday, like, that was an upset. Now Portugal's gone. Now France is gone. And you're thinking to yourself, like, okay, so Denmark, Czech Republic, now Switzerland, who wins this tournament? Like, what is going to happen? It's so incredible. And I think it's very fun to see, different nations have the opportunity to go forward in these tournaments. And I certainly think that, maybe it's putting a little bit of doubt in the back of minds of some of these sort of so-called sort of world powerhouses, that you can't come into this tournament and think that you're just going to dominate and you don't have to pay attention to until the quarterfinals. And France, I don't think that I wouldn't say they were as far as arrogant about being favorites. I think that but I don't think that they came to play for big stretches of this tournament. And frankly, I think that they deserve to be out today.
There was an entitlement in their preparation, it seemed. And this was an unbelievable year. Certainly not a standard year in preparing for a tournament that came 365 days later than it was supposed to. But you're right about these bigger nations having to really look at themselves in the mirror, and across the board, not just, one or two countries in transition or one or two countries who have a poor tournament or a missed kind of generation of players. We thought that expanding this tournament to 24 teams and the World Cup, which when it is here on these shores in 2026 will be a 48-team World Cup. There was so much talk about, this watering down the quality. And that hasn't been the case at all. It's elevated these smaller nations, and it's given nations who never would have had a shot at knocking out a giant like France in the knockout rounds of a tournament. So on that, what are we going to get between England and Germany?
You and I were speaking earlier today, and we were talking, and you said, I wonder what Gareth Southgate, has up his sleeve. And my concern, and my response to you was, my concern is that all he has is Harry Kane. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what we get out of this game. I think that England will be in trouble if Gareth Southgate goes traditional. I think that what we've learned from the round robin play with England is the fact that bringing in the young players that he brought in the last game in particular they're game changers, and they're what are going to provide the spark for England up front. And I don't just mean Harry Kane, but I think that Gareth Southgate has a reputation of going traditionally. He goes back to the guys that he thinks can get the job done, and those are the likes of the Harry Kanes and the Jordan Hendersons and those players. And I just don't think that those are the players that are going to bring an extra edge. I don't think they've shown that so far. I think Jack Grealish, Saka, I think, maybe we're going to see Sancho at some point, like, who knows? But I think that that's the way to beat Germany, because Germany is fantastic at being a traditional team. Germany knows how to be a traditional team and how to beat a traditional team. I think that if you're going to go toe to toe with Germany playing a game that Germany knows how to play, you're going to lose pretty much every time, which they have in the past, basically.
I think it would be such a poor decision by Gareth Southgate not to include Jadon Sancho considerably in his squad. Doesn't have to start him, but I mean, if there's one player in your team that can unlock your opposition, that is specifically prepared to take on your opposition, it is Jadon Sancho.
I
I
agree.
really enjoyed this conversation, Laura. I can't wait to read what you write in the Toronto Star.
I can't wait to see what it says.
I don't know if we can handle another day like this tomorrow. I mean, England v. Germany could very well be a barn burner. Lots of people are expecting it to be. And I mean, hey, the way Sweden have looked since they've unlocked the, how do you say it in English? Fun when they play. The Swedes are capable of making that a show against Ukraine as well. But it is England v. Germany that everybody's been talking about. Behind Belgium and Portugal, the most anticipated game of the round of 16, Raphael Honigstein wrote a great piece about how this rivalry isn't a real rivalry for the Germans. Yes, England fans will forever sing about 1966 and Emil Heskey scoring in 2006. But look, 4 World Cups, 3 European championships. They're just not in the same class. Sorry, England. Having said that, we could see an amazing game at Wembley, although games against Germany haven't gone all that well for the English at Wembley. But this isn't the old England team. This isn't like the English sides of the past. And if Southgate uses Jadon Sancho and trusts Grealish and Foden, like Laura and I were saying, England could make it as difficult for Germany as Kai Havertz found the first 3 quarters of his first season at Chelsea. Of course, if this match does go to penalties, 3 Lines Twitter will lose it. England lost to Germany on penalties at the 1990 World Cup and again at Euro 96, which was in England. And of the 9 penalty shootouts that England have been involved in, if you include the Nations League, England have only won 3. But we saw one of the best players in the world stop from the penalty spot, knocking the tournament's biggest favorites out in the last 16, which means anything can happen. Look, I can't wait to watch it tomorrow and to recap the day with you. It's the last day of the last 16, and this has been quite a ride. Thanks for kicking it with me.